Hi, how you doing? This is Stu Simone with Rock Real Estate. And if you own a home, a single family residence, or SFR as they call them, in California, or are looking to buy, you need to watch this video. Until recently, a house in the garage was just a house in the garage. But no more. Thanks to the California housing crisis, ADU, which stands for Alternative Dwelling Unit, is now the sexiest acronym in the English language. Thanks to various members of our California legislature, nearly a dozen bills have passed since 2019 that have effectively eliminated single-family home zoning in California. Think about that for a minute. In the big picture, that means our current urban housing density someday will be a distant memory. And Southern California might more resemble San Francisco. And if you've been there, you know what I mean. So California Senate Bills 9 and 10, which allow up to 4 units on an SFR lot and possibly as much as 10, is great news for real estate investors. And hey, if you own a home, that means you now have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a real estate investor too. Rental rates are going through the roof, and in most cases rising even more than property values. So imagine your financial situation with an extra $2,000 coming in every month. And for you professional real estate investors, we'll be showing you exactly what the best properties to buy are to take full advantage of these California laws. So I wanted to find out all there is to know about ADUs in California, and who best to learn from than Mr. ADU himself, Seth Phillips. Seth is the founder of ADU Gold and is widely considered California's leading expert on ADUs. Seth has been a licensed real estate broker for over 30 years and has 13 years of real estate development expertise, having renovated over 1,200 houses and ADUs, and is the founder of the ADU Development Group with over 730 members. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. ADU, Seth Phillips, to Rock Real Estate. How you doing, Seth?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
Very good. Excellent. These are exciting times in real estate. So I'm so pleased to have you on the show. I think that everybody needs to know about these ADU laws in California. So maybe you could just give us a big general overview of what it all means to everybody that owns property here.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in there. Two different main categories, the ADU laws, which went into effect in January 1st, 2017, and then were amended and upgraded in 2020 to include multifamily properties. So under the ADU laws, single-family homeowners and multifamily homeowners can now add anywhere from 1 to unlimited number of ADUs. The basic premise is that every single family homeowner can add 1 ADU, but they also now can add a second ADU as a junior ADU. So you can have 2 ADU units. The one challenge to that formula that's important to know is that if you have a junior ADU on your property, then there is a owner occupancy requirement. The owner has to live in one of the units, and that's not only for the owner now, that's in perpetuity. It actually goes on the deed as a deed restriction, so all future owners also have to occupy one of those properties. Now, if you just have 1 ADU, then that does not apply. But it's a fantastic opportunity in a way, as you said, to be able to add rental income to your property and have your property help pay for itself. And with the prices where they are now, I mean, the median price of a home in Los Angeles now is over $850,000. And that's a really scary thing, because the percentage of the population that can afford an $850,000 house has gotten so small that it's really starting to turn into a huge barrier to the first-time buyers. And if you think about it, the whole real estate game is almost like a giant Ponzi scheme. There always has to be new buyers coming in on the bottom level, so all the levels above them can move up. And if we cut off the flow into the bottom level, that whole thing could be, in jeopardy. So it's really critical that we find a way to add more housing for first-time buyers in particular. ADUs are potentially part of that solution, SB 9 as well. And we're also working on some new programs that will involve this new TIC programs, which is the tenancy in common, which will, I think, produce an opportunity to produce lower cost housing that won't be in the traditional model of the fee simple ownership, but it will be ownership, and it will be an opportunity for first-time home buyers to gain some equity to be able to get into the game. So we're excited about that. The second and the newest part of the laws, was, as you mentioned, is SB 9 and 10. But SB 10, the legislators basically chickened out at the last second. And unlike SB 9 and the ADU laws, they're state laws, but they are mandated, which means every city in California has to allow them. There's no some can, some can't. It's the whole state. But with SB 10, as I said, they chickened out at the last second. So they basically left it up to the cities of whether they want to adopt it or not.
And SB 10 is the one about the transit rich areas, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one that also, like you said, you could put potentially 10 units on a single family lot. So it's certainly a more extreme possibility, although limited to just areas of mass transit and employment areas, high employment areas as well. So I don't know what's going to happen with that one. It's certainly not been implemented anywhere yet. But SB 9, on the other hand, that is just so exciting. And I'm really happy that you brought me on board to share information about this, because this one can really just affect so many people in really positive ways that I'm just so happy to be part of it. So just a quick breakdown on it. Under SB 9, and at this time, it only applies to single family properties. R1.
Now hold on. You just said at this time. So what do you mean? At a future time, it could change?
It could, because I mean, the same thing, for instance, the ADU laws, when they first came out, 2017, they only applied to single family properties. But due to the success of the program, the legislators were able to come back 3 years later based on the success of it and add even more options to it, which included multifamily properties. So the same thing could possibly happen with SB 9, but for the right now, it only applies to single family properties. And now any single family, basically any single family property throughout the state of California can now subdivide their lot into two separate legal lots. And each one of those lots could be owned separately or sold separately or bought separately. That's the really most important part of this as I explain it. So now on each one of these newly subdivided lots, you can have 2 units on each one of them. So what was one single lot before with just one house allowed on it now can be 2 separate legal lots, and each one of them can have a 2. So that's a total of 4 units on that same piece of dirt, which really is just radically changes the income potential of it in an amazing way.
Now, I would imagine there's going to be a minimum size on the lots. You just can't buy any small lot, right?
Well, that's really one of the many miracles of this law. Yes, there is a minimum lot size, 2,400 square feet.
That's small.
So each subdivided lot just needs to be a minimum.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You could get it. That's a small lot, 2,400. You could divide that in half?
You could divide 2,400 square foot lot into 2 1,200 square foot lots and build a total of 4 units on that piece of dirt. Now, obviously, you're going to have to build up to be able to do that. And that's going to be up to the individual cities on what they do in terms of height restrictions, because that's not mandated into the state law in terms of the height. Although they do have that, the cities will have to allow a minimum of 800 square feet per unit to be built, regardless of the city's current zoning restrictions or anything like that. So it's really just going to open up some amazing rental income possibilities. But there's another way of looking at this that I haven't heard anybody else talking about this. I'm the only one that's articulated it this way. And I'll give you a kind of an analogy to set it up. The way the lots are carved up in the great majority of cities in California, I'll use Los Angeles as an example, is pretty standardized. You can drive down, most streets, and those houses were built as part of a tract, typically somewhere in the early 1900s, and they were originally around 1,200 square feet, and the lots were basically about 5,000 square feet. However, when those lots were cut up, you can drive down any street, and those houses will all be pretty conforming, same thing, but on almost maybe every block or every other block, one of those lots would be like 8,000 square feet instead of 5,000 square feet. Same size house on it. And if you look at the value difference on that street, so you look at the house that's got the original 1,200 square foot house on the 5,000 square foot lot, compare it to the value of the property next door, which is a 1,200 square foot house on an 8,000 square foot lot. Yes, that property is going to be worth more, but only a little bit more, like maybe $50,000. But now this is the magic. Now that extra 3,000 square feet under SB 9 could be a separate legal buildable lot. And anywhere in the city of Los Angeles, that piece of dirt now is worth a minimum of $500,000.
Wow.
So instead of it being $50,000 more of value to the property, now it's an extra $500,000 worth of property value. And it can be sold separately.
Wow.
So there's going to be, I see the number one possible use case of this is of people that own property that really don't have any intention of moving. They love their house. They want to stay there, but they've got this larger lot.
Yeah.
They got this bigger backyard, which many people don't really even utilize much. So now if they want to, they can basically, before with ADUs, it was rent your backyard. Well,
right.
Now with SB 9, it's sell your backyard.
Wow.
You could sell your backyard for $500,000 and continue to live in your house forever if you want, with basically no change other than you're going to have a new neighbor. And because you're selling the land, you can kind of like set the rules of what they're going to do with that land.
Right.
Like they can only build this amount and they have to have this kind of fencing and blah, 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 blah. So you could kind of custom design it to get the most privacy between the units if you wanted to. So that's going to really
covenants.
I'm really excited about that.
Wow, that is really amazing. I hope you real estate investor types are really paying attention, or anyone's thinking of buying property, because I mean that is just incredible. Are the appraisers probably aren't even really appraising correctly for that? Wouldn't that be true?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a process, and that's same thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because with ADUs, the same thing. It's a brand new concept, and appraisers, a typical appraiser actually has a very simple job. They get a property to appraise, they draw a circle half mile around it, they find all the homes that have sold within the last year that are similar to the house they're appraising within that half mile. They kind of average that all out. They got the value. Pretty simple. But when they're coming to analyze a property with an ADU on it, there probably isn't going to be another house with an ADU to compare it to within a half a mile. Although there's more and more all the time now, but at least initially there was almost none, of course. So now you're asking an appraiser to do something very dangerous. Think.
Yeah, they're not too good with that.
When they start thinking, it could be anything. So the appraisals have really been all over the board. But the basic rule of thumb, the way it's going to end up being is whatever your house is worth per square foot in that area, that's what your ADU should be worth per square foot in that area. It's pretty simple and obvious. So it's just going to take time for that. But you're right. There'll be appraisal issues that are going to come up with this newly created land because it wasn't there before. The government just made new land. It's a miracle, but it's going to be exciting to see how that goes.
So what would be the ultimate lot to look for if you're wanting to buy a property and take advantage of these laws?
Well, this is kind of a little golden nugget I'm going to share with you.
I'm sorry, folks. I hate to do this to you, but we've run over time on this one by a lot. And I know you're as excited about it as I am, but we're going to have to make this a teaser for part 2 of Mr. ADU and talk about a teaser. Seth is about to tell you what the ultimate property for an ADU is, something where the property is actually worth $500,000 more than the assessor will assess it for if you listen to Seth and find the right kind of property. So it's going to tell you what's the best ADU size. Is bigger always better? Maybe not. And how to get 4 units on one lot in LA and no residency required. You can buy a single family residence and end up renting out 4 units. Think about that, folks. And first-time home buyers, we don't want to leave you out. So even if you're not an investor, Seth has a strategy for you. And at the end of the video, part 2, we're going to tell you how to get a 30-minute free consultation with Mr. ADU, Seth Phillips. So how about that? So stay tuned for part 2 of Mr. ADU right here on Rock Real Estate.